Well, Kentucky basketball had their worst shooting performance of the season so far against Georgia State, and it did not matter one bit.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on tonight's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we will be recapping Kentucky basketball's 105-76 win over the Georgia State Panthers. Panthers put up a fight in this one. It was a good game. You had a brawl. You had a lot of action at the rim. We're going to break it all down here for you tonight. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. You can download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. I want to remind you guys that we are free and available on all platforms. And if you are watching on YouTube, I would greatly appreciate it if you subscribe to the show. And if you're listening on podcast, I would also appreciate it if you subscribed there as well. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. 105-76 was the final score here. Just want to point out, first of all, let's go over what we marked down. That's right, on Mark It Down, our most recent segment of Mark It Down, I predicted that the Kentucky Wildcats would have 10 or more steals tonight, and here we are with a clean 10 steals for the Kentucky Wildcats. Just wanted to get that out of the way here first. Kentucky ended up winning this game by 29 points, and it was not that dramatic throughout the entirety of the game, or excuse me, the margin was not that wide throughout the entirety of this game. In fact, Georgia State cut this within, I think, 4 or 5 points there closer towards the end of the game, and then Kentucky just opened it up. They hit a few threes, and the game was over. The Panthers, we'll talk about what Kentucky did defensively and what Georgia State did offensively. So heading into this game, Georgia State was not anything to write home about when it comes to three-point shooting. They were, I think, shooting like 34% or something like that. It was like 35.6 or something like that before they played Kentucky. And it was not a good part of their offense per se, and they don't rely on three-pointers necessarily for their points. It's actually their lowest percentage in their, it's their lowest ranking in percentage of total points, point distribution on KenPom. And yet the Panthers, in the first half, they were knocking down some threes. They went 4 of 10 from beyond the arc, and you thought, okay, they're not taking a ton. But even when they do take them in the second half, that's going to slow down, and Kentucky's going to end up winning this game by a lot. And then they went 7 of 11 in the second half. I think they were 4 of 5 to start the second half. They hit most of those within the first few minutes of the second period of play. And it was just a head-scratching moment for Kentucky in this game defensively. What exactly was going on? Well, the Wildcats, it was a combination of them not necessarily closing out like they should on three-point shooters, and then it was also just the fact that Georgia State, across the board, was just hitting everything. And I mean everything in this game, particularly, in the second half. Just very, very frustrating stuff for Kentucky on defense. In the second half, they shot 51.7%, again, 63.6% from beyond the arc. The Cats just simply could not get a stop when they needed it because of the fact that Georgia State was just kind of fogging it up and it was going in. That's kind of it. I don't think you're going to see another opponent do what Georgia State did tonight, which is come in shooting very inefficiently from a variety of spots and then just go ballistic for absolutely no reason. There is no reason why this team should have finished shooting 52% in this game. They just simply hit shots they normally don't take nor hit. That is my assessment. They turned the ball over 18 times. Kentucky did what they needed to do, creating turnovers, getting out in transition. They played very, very, very well, I think, on both ends of the floor at the rim, which we will get to here in a second. That is a prediction that we absolutely crushed in the preview episode. But yeah, defensively, you give up 76 points. There were a couple of threes late that Georgia State hit to get over 70. I don't care that Kentucky gave up 76 points in this game. You play this game 10 more times. Georgia State is probably not scratching 65. They're just not going to shoot the way that they did tonight. It just doesn't happen. For the game, they shot 6% worse from the floor than they did from three. That's because of what Kentucky was able to do at the rim, controlling the paint, which we will get to whenever we talk about the offense here in just a little bit. But man, there's not much else to say about the defensive performance other than it was just weird. Things happen, man. Like stuff like this does happen where you just have a team come in and they play out of their mind, playing the game. It felt like Georgia State was playing the game of their life, and it was just not. It's just not a good time for Kentucky for like 3/4 of this contest. Wildcats fought through it, and they almost won by 30 plus with a few missed shots late. Kirk Risa trying to get to 1,000 points at the end. Fogged up some threes, didn't hit any of them. And Georgia State was able to kind of close that 30-point gap, cut it to 29 there as time expired. I mean, I'm proud of the way that this team continues to find ways to win, despite some frustrating things happening on either one side or the other of the basketball. And here's what I'll say. For any of you out there that may have concerns, that may be frustrated, that may look at a game like this and find a way to come out of it upset. First of all, just want to remind you guys, Kentucky is 7-0. They have not been 7-0 since, I believe, the 2016-17 season. We'll go back and look. They were 7-0 to start that game, and then they lost on December 3rd to UCLA by 10. Kentucky plays December 3rd, this Tuesday, against Clemson. They are currently projected to lose that game. If they find a way to win against Clemson, this will be the best start, and goodness knows how long, for these Cats. You cannot be upset, especially considering you beat Duke. The second thing I want to say here, this team has scored over 100 points 4 of the 7 times they have come out onto the floor. They've scored over 100 points 4 times. Count them up. Shout out Luke McClure. 4. That's what we're getting here. These kids did not even know each other last semester. Something that my dad actually said watching this game is pointing out that like they didn't know who each other were. They did not know that they existed. You're going to get games where things don't go perfectly on both ends. But Mark Pope has put together this roster in about 6 months, and they've dropped 104 times. I don't care who the opponents are. When's the last time Kentucky was able to score 100 points more than 3 times in a season? The offense is incredible. The defense is pretty darn strong as well, statistically continuing to get better. By the time they get through SEC play, I hope this is the case, but I assume it's going to be the case. By the time they get through SEC play, Kentucky basketball is going to be one of the most well-organized, well-oiled, and focused teams in America. They are experienced. They are tall. They can shoot well. They play good defense. They play with a lot of energy and a lot of heart. You're going to see this Kentucky team continue to fight and only get better. That is my belief. They will get better. These kids are just now coming together and playing meaningful basketball. That game against Clemson will be a big test. That's a good opponent. Clemson's a good, balanced team. We'll see how it turns out. But games like this, where defensively you just have things not necessarily go your way, it's okay. Because at the end of the day, you're still able to pull it out by a pretty wide margin, I must say. All right, let's continue along here, breaking down Kentucky basketball's victory over the Georgia State Panthers. Before we do that, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at Game Time. Obviously, Kentucky basketball going on the road, like I mentioned, to Clemson, South Carolina to face off against the Tigers. Kentucky going to play against Gonzaga in the battle for Seattle. Two really big away and the neutral site games, so to speak. Neutral site, it's in Seattle. We know what's going on there. But if you want to go to either of those games, you need to go check out Game Time. Game Time is the place that you need to go to get your tickets to any Kentucky basketball games in the future. They have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. It filters out the fluff, does Game Time Picks to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Obviously, again, like I mentioned, Clemson, Gonzaga, you could go to the Colgate game, you could go see Ohio State whenever Kentucky goes to play them. So many different opportunities to go see the Cats in person. You need to go to Game Time. There's all-in pricing, views from your seat. The lowest price guarantee as well means Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find the same ticket in the same section and row for less elsewhere. It's the website that I've been using for a couple of years now. Love using them for college football, basketball, different NFL events that I'm going to be going to in the future, concerts, music, comedy, any sort of ticket you want to get. You can take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with Game Time Picks by downloading the Game Time app, creating an account, and using code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, continuing along here on the Saturday evening edition of Locked On Kentucky. Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. I really appreciate you guys checking out the show today. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel or the podcast feed, I would greatly appreciate it if you did so. Recapping Kentucky basketball's 105-76 win over the Georgia State Panthers. Ladies and gentlemen, the offense. Let us turn our attention to the offense. Again, I want to remind you guys, 105 points, that's just a touch behind the 108 points Kentucky scored against Jackson State last Friday. They've scored 103 against Wright State, 100 against Bucknell, 108 against Jackson State, now 105 against Georgia State. Count them up. That's 4 different times. Again, shout out the boys. 4. Go ahead and get that one on the screen. So I'm going to screenshot that later and send it to some people. All right. So 105 points. How exactly did Kentucky do it? Well, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, Kentucky didn't shoot particularly well from beyond the arc. It was actually putrid. It was terrible. It's the worst shooting performance Kentucky has had so far this season. They shot 26.9% in this game. They were 3 of 15 in the second half, which is just yuck. But what did we say in the preview episode? We knew this was coming. Believed that Kentucky was going to dominate Georgia State at the rim. They are not particularly great at defending the rim, and I thought Kentucky, getting out in transition, would be able to dominate at different points inside of the arc. When Georgia State has struggled so far this season, they have really struggled in the paint. 62 of Kentucky's 105 points came in the paint tonight. And the Cats, despite shooting just 26.9% from 3, shot 60% for the game. Do you know what that means? That means they throttled Georgia State at the rim. Throttled. And they also got to the free throw line a decent bit, 18 of 22. Kentucky was 12 of 12 from the charity stripe in the second half. And there's a player that I'm going to highlight here later on in the show, and I want to give him his flowers because I was pretty critical of his play last game, and I want to give him some love tonight because he had to step in because another player was out. Man, Kentucky did what they needed to do. They went out and just out-muscled and out-physicaled a team that was wanting to make this game physical. And they did because they got a brawl out of it. because one of their players decided to armbar Amari Williams in the back. 62 points, 23 points in the fast break. You had 10 steals, you had 23 assists to just 9 turnovers. You went out, you got out and ran, and you were explosive at the rim. Love to see it. Let's go ahead and start talking about some of these performances, and let's discuss Amari Williams. Let's give this kid some flowers. We'll go ahead and talk about how well he played in this game. Before I talk about the individual play of Amari Williams, let's discuss how the fight was handled. So in case you did not see it, in the second half of this game, Amari Williams got armbarred in the back, the lower back, by a player on Georgia State. His name is Cash Peters. Cash Peters, just want to throw this out there, played 12 minutes tonight against Kentucky. He did not put up a shot. He did not record a rebound. He did not record an assist. He recorded 5 fouls. He fouled out with a technical foul. And he had 3 turnovers in just 12 minutes. So it's 0-0-0, 3 turnovers, 12 minutes. I have never seen a more going out there and getting my cardio moment from a college basketball player. Shout out Cash for wanting to start some stuff with Amari, but he threw Amari to the ground, and obviously there was a big scuffle after that. There was a Georgia State staffer that got into the mix that, frankly, I think should have been thrown out. There was a lot of pushing, a lot of talking, a lot of jawing. Kobe Brea got in there. He received a technical in this game. I believe Otega Owe at one point received a technical in this game. But Amari did exactly what you need to do in that moment, which is he got up and he went, and instead of going to get in the scrum, he got as many of his teammates as he could, put his arms around them, and just smiled and was walking them away from the fight. That is what leaders do. That is what experienced veteran guys do. Instead of continuing to escalate a situation, you calm it down, and he was the one that got hit. He didn't do anything, and he was the one that got hit. Very mature display from Amari Williams. I'm so impressed by that. I'm even more impressed by the way that he played tonight with Brandon Garrison, who was out. I'm not quite sure why he was out, but Amari Williams in his stead. 21 minutes, split a little time there at the 5 with Andrew Carr, who also played really well. But Williams, 14 points, 4 of 6 from the floor. He had 6 rebounds, 3 assists to just 1 turnover. He had a steal in this game as well, and he took 6 shots from the free throw line, and he made them all. You're not going to be able to get perfect games like this, and I say perfect from the charity stripe, I should say. You're not going to be able to get great games like this night in and night out from Amari on the offensive end of the floor, I should say. But this is something that you need to harp on whenever it does happen. I am impressed with the way that he handled himself and the way that he played tonight. I really am proud of how the Wildcats kind of handled themselves after this. It's just, you don't, not often do you see Kentucky getting into a fight with a team like Georgia State, but I think the Wildcats, they handled themselves well. I do find it funny that the officials to foul Cash Peters out of the game, because he technically had been ejected. Like they had come out and said he's been ejected from the game, and I guess he wasn't, because whenever another Georgia State player had to come out of the game because of foul trouble, Peters went back in. He was out there for a few minutes, and then he, at one point, sets a screen on the right side in the half court, on almost on the wing, and he gets called for a moving screen. And if you go and look at the replay, the kid did not move an inch. He set a normal screen. Just goes to show you how the officials felt about him coming back in the game. Didn't want him out there. Amari was the most impressive player to me tonight. Got another couple of really solid performances. Andrew Carr, 10 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, a block, 2 steals, 32 minutes. Was second on the team, and third on the team, in plus-minus. Kobe Brea actually led the way in plus-minus here tonight with 10 points, 3 assists, 2 rebounds, and a block, plus 26, which showed you he's playing pretty good defense tonight. And a lot of people apparently think he can't play defense. He can. The leader in scoring, though, was Jaxson Robinson, who had 19 points on 9 of 14 shooting. He had that floater in the mid-range game going. It was really impressive to see him continue to come off of curl after curl after curl and just knock down that same shot. Pure, really smooth. Struggling from three. The shot selection from Jaxson is not the best to start the season. Someone has got to tell him to stop rushing things when he gets an open look in transition. He has really struggled, it looks like, in terms of corner threes in transition. He struggled in the Duke game. I noticed he struggled tonight. Someone's got to tell him to settle down and just put the ball up and just not try and rush things. Lamont Butler had 17 points, was plus 24 in this game. Of course, he filled up the stat sheet as he normally does. 17 points on 7 of 10 shooting. All 3 of his misses came from behind the arc. He was 4 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 turnovers, 3 steals in this game. So that is 17, 6, 4, and 3 from your lead point guard. And there were so many people. There were so many people this offseason that were saying Lamont shouldn't be the starting point guard. If you can get 17 points, 3 steals, and 6 assists to 2 turns, you cannot complain about this. Carissa came off the bench. He had 9 points of his own. It would have been efficient shooting had he not been chucking shots up at the end to try to get to 1,000 points, but that's okay. It's part of it. Hey, it's okay. His three-point shooting percentage is abysmal, by the way, to start the season. We'll go and pull it up here real quick because it is it's not great. Especially last time I checked. Yeah, 27%. Yikes. Jaxson Robinson down to 31%. Lamont is now shooting 29%. Kobe Brea and Otega Owe are doing a lot of the heavy lifting for Kentucky in terms of three-point shooting, as is Ainsley Almanor, who also had a good game tonight. He was 2 of 3 from beyond the arc, 12 points, 4 of 5 from the floor, 4 rebounds, and 2 steals. Kentucky, again, racking up steals tonight. Otega, efficient as usual, 12 points, 5 of 8 shooting, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal of his own. It's good stuff. Good stuff from the Cats. Let's see. That is Almanor, Brea, Amari, Carr, Robinson, Butler, and Owe in double figures. Kerr almost got there. And Travis Perry and Trent Noah played a couple minutes in this game. Colin Chandler played 5 minutes in this game. He made the only basket that he took. It was a really nice reverse layup. Pretty move. Kentucky scoring 1.38 points per possession, scoring 64.5% of the time, only turning the ball over 11.8%. This team doesn't turn the ball over. They shoot well. They shoot incredibly well at the rim. It's looking a lot like the BYU team from a season ago where where the Mark Pope-led Cougars, I should say, they were fast. They shot average from beyond the arc. Kentucky's shooting way better than that, way better than average right now. But they were really, really good at the rim. They shot well from the charity stripe, which Kentucky is almost right on the money. Actually, they're almost right on the money in terms of free throw percentage that BYU had a season ago. Except this Kentucky team looks like they're not as good at offensive rebounds, but they're so good grabbing defensive rebounds and making sure teams can't get second chance points. I'm just going to throw this out there randomly. That Texas A&M game is going to prove to be testy in that category. But overall, the Wildcats, statistically, they're doing well. They scored 105 points tonight. You can't complain. A bunch of guys in double figures. Yes, there was a fight. I think Kentucky handled themselves well coming out of it. And we move on to Clemson on Tuesday. We'll have a preview episode out for the Cats whenever we get back on Monday. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hey, you can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK. You can follow me on Twitter at @LanceDaw_, and you can follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, leave those in the YouTube comments below. Hit me on the socials. I will see you all on Monday for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and God bless.